Shalom YouTube, you're listening to The Financially Savvy Chick. There is no such thing as a fair share of taxes. Biden recently trotted out the well-worn progressive complaint about the rich not paying their fair share of taxes, and it's about time the super wealthy start paying their fair share. Claiming that billionaires paid a lower rate than school teachers and firefighters, Biden insisted that the rich should pay. Missing from this conversation is just what exactly one's fair share of taxes is and how that is determined to be fair. This is because the notion of any objective measure of taxes as being a fair share is a complete illusion. Okay? Taxes are what citizens are compelled to pay in exchange for government services, like criminal justice, national defense, healthcare, education, and not to mention port projects, war, and corporate welfare. This given exchange of money for goods and services, one could plausibly compare the notion of a fair share of taxes to that of a fair or just price of commodities, right? Murray Rothbard, he pointed out in his Power and Market, Government and the Economy, about the notion of a just price. And it was debated by ethicists and scholars for years, which indeed the history of the debate can be traced back to Aristotle, who described a just exchange as the trading of goods of like value while deeming as immoral the exploiting of arbitrary opportunities for profit. Thomas Aquinas, someone from the 13th century, he also held a similar view while allowing for profit from selling an item for more than you acquired it. Spanish scholastics in the 16th and 17th centuries introduced to this debate the concept of subjective value, suggesting that the just price was in accordance with the valuation of the prospective buyer in contrast to any objective value inherent with the good itself. So the notion is subjective of value largely carried out in today's society pretty much, because no such quantitative universal measure of a just price could be agreed upon. The only possible objective criterion for the just price is the market price, which is voluntarily agreed to by the buyer and the seller. So in other words, ethicists and economists for centuries fought with this concept of a fair price for a good or service, and then they finally came up with the consensus that only a fair price is one mutually and voluntarily agreed upon by the seller and buyer. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to taxes, however, voluntary agreement is removed, because the government imposes its arbitrary chosen tax rates by threat or force, because mutual consent is removed from the transaction. So there can be no such thing as a fair share of taxes. Tax rates are largely politically motivated and arbitrarily chosen and stacked with exemptions and penalties to help incentivize behaviors favored by politicians who write the voluminous tax code. I mean, it's endless. Regardless of the rate, there's no fairness to be achieved. Some argue that a fair tax for various income groups should be proportional to the share of income earned for those groups. According to the Tax Foundation, however, the top 1% of income earners pay 42.3% of federal income taxes while earning 22% of the nation's income. The top 10% earn 49.5% of total income while paying nearly 74% of all income taxes. So the average effective income tax rate for the top 10% was 20.3%, which is more than 6 times 3.1% rate paid by the bottom 50%. The numbers don't add up. And so by this measure, you can argue that the rich are paying well above their fair share, which is why this measure is never mentioned when Biden and company are asked to specify, what a fair share would be. And then you have a lot of people who just want handouts, don't want to go to work, and just want like a universal income, which is going to be horrible. Complicating the concept of a fair share of taxes further to the extent the discussion is on income taxes, that one's income in any given year may not neatly categorize someone as rich or not. A person's income represents merely a snapshot in their time, in their time. For example, people move about income levels over the course of their lives. Today's low-income individual could be a recent college graduate, for example, from an upper middle class family who's merely working an entry-level job on their way to a lucrative career. And then you have this year's high-income earner, which could be a small business owner who struggled for decades, okay, and then finally had a successful year, but still remains deep in debt. Now, this snapshot that I just gave you in no way tells you anything about the financial well-being over the lifetimes of these two people, right? Being judged as rich or not. So in short, simple, income statistics often provide a misleading snapshot of individuals' financial well-being and therefore of how taxes really affect them. It's not quite so easy to look at a person's W-2 in a given year and determine if he's rich and therefore must pay or be compelled to pay a fair share. Moreover, taxes are the livelihood and the lifeblood of the political class. The more taxes they extract from you and I, the greater power they hold over society and its scarce resources, which is not right. More taxes means more political favors to be doled out, voting blocks to be rewarded, and patriot networks to pay off. The discussion of non-existent concepts of a fair share of taxes should be dropped immediately and exposed for what it is. An arbitrary and artificial notion used to disguise political power grabs. They initially started citizens here in this country paying taxes to support the Civil War initially, and it was supposed to be temporarily. It never went away. So, what is the fair share of tax on a bribe? Have you ever thought to ask that question? How about we let taxpayers with incomes between $30,000 and $100K pick who gets to pay tax increases? I don't think they're going to let that take place. And then who creates currency, right? The government does, so they can collect taxes. And then it's like stealing legally, It's like there's a 10% kickback. I'm not going to go there. But please hit the thumbs up if you like this video. Don't forget to check out our website, financiallysavvychick.com. Visit our blog section. Until next time, shalom.